Welcome to the Candy Shop Show. We've got a lot of sweet information for you folks this evening, and our special guest speaker, special edition show with Christopher Stephen Jacobs and all the Galactics. So stay tuned. This is going to be a great one. Okay. Wow. Let's see. We have got a lot of things going on. We'll be hoping that many of the Galactics will be joining us. But right now, I want to open up the candy jar, and let's see what kind of treats we've got.
Okay.
Remember, folks, if you want to make a comment or question, just do a *6 and come in. So I have got, there's just so much going on politically and galactically, and I think people are all feeling this change as we're in fourth dimension going into fifth and becoming more using telepathy and intuition. I think that people are communicating, their psychic powers are getting sharper as we're deeper into 4D, and I hope folks will listen to the YouTube from Monday Night Show with Chris and Elizabeth and Cynthia. It was just great, and we had visitors for the first time to the call from Saturn, and they explained that they live in ninth dimension and that Saturn in the ninth dimension looks much like Earth, and we did a lot of prayer work to help the situation with Neptune. So it was a very important call, and so we hope that folks will be sure to listen to that if you haven't. I'm glad to hear all those folks coming online tonight with us, and so that is just great. Benjamin Fulford put out some amazing information. I hope folks will be sure and listen to it. It's up on YouTube now. And I'm seeing sources from several different places, what I've been following for years, reaffirm that Benjamin really has good sources and information. And so do get some details from him. We talked about some of the things that Marianne shared with us on the Rainbow Council this last couple of weeks about the events taking place, on June 18th. Valiant Thor, who is the walk-in for Barack Obama, came on and made an announcement to the cabal. I feel really honored that they use our channel to get their messages out, and talked about some of the problems with that Barack Obama is having to make full disclosure, but it's coming. Things are happening. He told us that we'd be seeing a lot more people being arrested, and as we've heard on the national media, there's a warrant out for arrest in France for one of the Rothschilds for fraud, and lots of things have happened with Britain exiting the EU and the stock market dropping and going up, and the BitCoins reflecting all of that. And wow, the Galactics kind of encouraged me that Bitcoin's internet currency was a step away from our slavery to the U.S. dollar. And so I'm out there trading and met 2 new customers today. One of them was from Chicago. And so it's been really interesting. I'm trying to have a very low price on my Bitcoins as I'm trying to help people get something. going. And Marianne's letter said something about events with and 3rd, 4th, and 5th of July, and with the banks. And I wondered if Marianne was there, if she could do a *6, if she could add anything more to these reports that we're hearing.
I'm right here. I mean, this is all subject to change, and things are fluid and in movement, and basically some of the letters are saying that since Britain exited, there will be other countries, France and Germany and Italy, and it says as the EU will cease to exist as we know, and with all countries expressing desire for sovereignty by the end of the week. I mean, that's kind of, it's almost hard to believe. So we'll see about that, but things are changing quickly. Let's see. And this will cause Obama and Biden to offer and announce their dual resignations on TV sooner than later. This is all subject for change. So maybe not this week, but I have a sense it will be soon. And Paul Ryan will be the new interim Republic president. And the currency change, there's dates of July 3rd, July 4th. A lot of it's subject to change, but it's very, I have a sense that, and, we've heard this before, but not at this level. So I don't want to get people's hopes up, but in the back, I'm getting a lot of information. So just take it one step at a time, stay grounded in your heart, and know that everything is moving along in the background for our highest interests, and keeping peace throughout the world. So that's what I have.
Oh, that is wonderful. Just stay with me, Marianne. Is my volume okay?
You're great. Am I fine?
You are fine. That is good. And I hope that Cynthia will be able to come on in a few minutes and lead us in the Law of One. I have another source that says Netherlands is ready to jump out of the EU as well. So, and that part of this is all happening because basically Germany is bankrupt, and so they're really scrambling. They were trying to be like the leader of all of this, and then they've gone bankrupt with all their derivatives, with the Deutsche Bank derivatives, and they were referring back to the fact that actually, when the wall came down in '89, I think it was because Russia was bankrupt, and that Poland went bankrupt first and pulled everything down, and that's what's happening here. And maybe we just need to have some bankruptcies to clear out the cabal and their control and the mess they've made with all these derivatives. And of course, this depression that we've been in since '08 and before is so much worse than the one of the '30s. I mean, there would be miles and miles and miles of people standing in soup lines if it wasn't for food stamps. The food stamps is our electronic soup line, and so they can hide things. And I don't know, Marianne, what do you sense? Do you sense that there'll be a disclosure on television? Do you think that there's a possibility, and maybe the Galactics will speak to it tonight, do you think that there's a possibility that they can change the dollar, the domestic dollar, to be gold backed without shutting down the banks or ATMs this weekend, without making a public announcement? Can they quietly, in the backstage, change it over like the White Dragon Society wants to gold-backed currency?
I think anything's possible, and I think that the White Knights and the Galactics are doing everything behind the scenes to bring this forth in the highest way for the highest good for all. And, what they've done so far, and, of course I don't know, I just know what I read, but I can see in some sense behind the scenes, and I can also get a feel of the energy out there. And they are methodical, and they are, crossing their T's and dotting their I's and taking it step by step. And this is a phenomenal procedure that they have prepared for and that they are executing in a way that is superior and excellent and with God's hand.
Hey, could I chime in here real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
With the news? Regarding financial reset, you guys are talking about the EU went away, and then you talked about another country, and, I studied economy and economists. It's all tied in together. So if we're seeing, and we've been seeing in the last 2 or 3 years, it crashing, and somehow, some way, they've been able to hide it and hold it up from not crashing so the world won't see. But it is happening, and it will happen. Our next is USA over this way, where it'll somehow accumulate in us maybe making a decision, kind of like the people over there, and go in a different way, kind of like Iceland did. But it's going to happen, and so even methodically, Marianne said it methodically, I'd say the White Knights, and if you watch the series Mr. Robot, it's about young men, they're hackers, and they take a lot of their money away. It's really nice to see a series on TV like that. But it's going to happen, and they're methodically doing it, and they've been holding it up for 2 or 3 years. This is going to crash 2 or 3 years ago, but they've been holding it up, but they can't hold it up. It's getting harder and harder for them to hold it up. Thanks. I want to add that.
Right.
But with the crash, sounds like a harsh word, and there is a protection. There is something underneath. I have a sense.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're talking about winning the global currency war that began September 9th, 2001, and it has been declared won as of this last week, and that is so fabulous. And Valiant Thor wants to do this revolution peacefully. He's wanting to give people a chance to repent and make amends. He would just assume that people didn't, rot in prison. All indications from Cheney is that, he will never apologize. But others are thinking, are trying to negotiate with the Galactics and those that are helping clear out the bad guys. And so this is good, and we don't want too much of a shock. And as Cynthia said Monday night, we want to visualize the end and not worry about the details. And I'm going on out in faith. I'm going to continue to go on my trip this weekend, and some are saying, cancel your vacations, and then others are saying, go ahead, live your lives. The Galactics have this under control, And sure, I'm going to take extra cash. I'm not going to plan to use an ATM card in case the ATMs are down this weekend. But I'm still going on the vacation, even though I'm going to have cash with me, and I'm going to I hope to, I'm going to be going to Annapolis and New York City, and I'm going to meet in person Boris Gonzalez, who was a great speaker on our show in past weeks, and will be back again. And so I want to tell Chris and the others about this amazing kind of a dreamlike experience I had tonight, and I hope that maybe one of the Galactics will speak to it. I unexpectedly ended up at my daughter's apartment, so I needed to help her and her family a lot in the last 48 hours, and so last night we slept together, but it was very unusual. As soon as I hit the pillow, I was asleep. I slept very solidly, but nothing disturbed me. She said that when she came to bed, I was completely asleep, and I woke up at the regular time at 6:30, but things felt different, and had breakfast. But an hour later, I was yawning. I felt exhausted. I felt like I woke up, and it was like I had this dream, and there was all these people there, and like I was at a class or something in training. And then and I remembered that when I'd been waking up lately, I hadn't had any fleeting memories of dreams. And so this morning was the first time that I had remembered a dream. But couple hours after I woke up, I was just yawning, and I couldn't function. And usually, if I haven't slept, I want to take a nap in the afternoon. But I had to rearrange my schedule. I had to go back to bed at 9 a.m. and I slept very, very solid. And finally, when I had to get up at 11 a.m., I was refreshed. So I'm just wondering if I went to Saturn, or what kind of the moon bases, or what kind of crazy things was going on last night. And my daughter also, she slept solid, but she was very, very tired. And it was like, maybe we both went together someplace. It was strange. But anyway, I got to help my family, and things are on track for them. And so I'm going to put the jar on the candy jar treats, and I want us to take relax for a moment, and not think about the exciting things we could be discussing, like Bernie won Missouri. I mean, in the election, Clinton won, but the Clinton people didn't bother to drive all the way to the state convention, and over 400 Bernie people drove from all over to get to this Sedalia, Missouri, and outvote the Clinton thing. So all of the platform issues, Bill Lynn Higgins was a delegate, and she has shared all these things with us, and it's just exciting what is still happening in the Bernie campaign, and the power and the energy to submit resolutions that are the kind that will help the people. Okay, I would like to ask Cynthia if she could step forward as I put the jar lid on, and if she could lead us in the law of one. Cynthia, are you there?
Yeah, I just had to unmute.
Okay.
Yes. I was tired today too, and I was unnaturally tired. And so it's interesting to me to hear that you went through the same thing and your daughter. And I even went on and looked at my biorhythms to see maybe that was the reason, and yeah, it was a low biorhythm. So I just thought, well, that's what it is. But let me lead us all in the law of one. And I call in the omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, divine love that is the reality of everything. It is the unified field. It is the intelligence that keeps everything in order, that sustains everything, that has created everything, that enlivens everything. I call in the divine immortal selves of everyone on this call, and I call in all our 7 billion brothers and sisters incarnated on the planet and their divine immortal selves. I call in the divine essence of every mineral, every plant, every animal, every elemental being, seen and unseen, known or unknown, the gnomes, the undines, the sylphs, the fire beings called the salamanders. I call in the masters, saints, and prophets, the guides. I call in all the beings, regardless of the roles they're playing or have played. I call in the galactics, our brothers and sisters from other planets, from other dimensions. I call in everything, all the plans that have ever been made, that are being made now, or that could be made in the future. I call in all the belief systems. I call in all the emotions, from the darkest emotions to the most high and ecstatic and spiritualized. I call in all the situations through many lifetimes, through our ancestral lineage, on this or any planet or in any dimension. And I thank you all for coming. I thank you all for being. I thank you for who you are. I thank you for all that you do, because it has allowed us all to learn so much through so many experiences, through time and space and beyond time and space. And I ask for your highest good, because, let us all say the law of one together, because we are all one.
We are all one.
We
Yes.
are all one.
When one is harmed, all are harmed.
When one
is harmed, all are harmed.
All are harmed.
When one is helped, all are helped.
When
When
one is
one
helped,
is helped, all are helped.
helped.
Therefore, in the name of who I am,
therefore, in the
Therefore,
name
in
of
the
who I am,
name of who I am,
and I am one with all there is.
and I am one
And
with
I
all
am
there
I
is.
am one
with all there is.
I ask for the highest good of all to happen.
I ask for the highest good of all.
highest good of all
to happen.
And I give so deep thanks that this is done.
And I give so deep
Thank
thanks
you.
with this is done.
So be it, and so it is.
So be it, and so it is.
So it is.
Back
Well,
to
thank you, Cynthia. Yes, that is beautiful. And folks, remember, we have learned the Galactics have asked us to pray for the highest good of all, not the highest good of all concerned, because it needs to be all. All right. Well, that really sets the stage, and let me welcome this June 29th, 2016, Christopher Stephen Jacobs. How are you?
Good, Candy. How you doing?
Okay. Well, who do we have that would like to visit with us first?
Well, it looks like the only one that I can see clearly enough is Omar. He's the one that came in tonight. He's been chatting with me a little bit when you were talking about a crash, or Marianne, when you were talking about a crash and all this other stuff. And he did reiterate the word crash is far too harsh of a word. It's more of a scare word, if anything else. He's been itching to come through to clarify a few things here. So let me get a drink and I'll allow him to come in.
Well, remember, folks, Omar is working hand in hand with Barack Obama and Valiant Thor, and we can see him sometimes on television as he is one of the bodyguards for Barack Obama, often wearing dark sunglasses, a tall gentleman. Yes. Welcome, Omar.
Yeah, okay. I'll let him let him come through. Okay. Greetings, everyone. You know me as Omar, the friend to Valiant Thor, and the one you know as Barack Obama. Though I cannot give my human name, I have told you how to spot me on your news programs. What I have been discussing with this one about a crash of your economy is this. The word is quite inaccurate. I, Valiant Thor, and many others are painstakingly setting the stage, so to speak, as you say, to make it possible so there is no such thing as a crash. Like your stock market crash of the 20s, this will not happen. It'll be the exact polar opposite that you are expecting. This transition is a better word. In the instance of going from one currency type to another currency type, it will revert to a much simpler idealism. This idealism is, as this one has stated in the past, a chip system that represent different resources. Colors of red, green, yellow, blue, white, and black, and brown will be used. Now, these different colors represent different resources. The color red will represent engineering resources, technology, innovation, and the like. Blue will represent natural resources such as water, natural gas, geothermal energies, and any sort of natural resource, both energy-wise and cultivation-wise, such as trees, fruits, vegetables, and the like. Green you would expect to represent these things, but green is more or less, as you say, replicator rations in a Star Trek vernacular. These will represent the resources abroad in space. These particular resources will be like, as you say, a vending machine to the replicator systems. Some species have technology that still require matter being fed into the replication systems. They are not as advanced as humans seem to think that they are. The races known as the Anunnaki, Sirian star beings, the Pleiadian collective, and only a few others know how to make a replicator replicate everything infinitely. This particular green chip is no different than, say, putting a quarter in a vending machine, then selecting your selection. This shows that you have earned what you are now consuming. The green chip is something that can be earned in the marketplace up on your moon base that has been discussed here in times past. This moon base has its mercado, as you would say in your Spanish language. It would be basically a marketplace, a bazaar, or any sort of venue such as that. Those green chips are mainly for food consumption, but the other chips are traded quite often in the spatial marketplace. This marketplace will be available to everyone once the disclosure has taken place. This, I can most definitely assure you, is the truth. The falsehoods are anything you see about a market crashing, about any sort of fictionalized, dramatic representations of such. All variations of a crash are false. All variations of your power being taken down are false. We control the power grid. We control your financial transitions. You will not lose money. However, in time, it will be converted over to this chip system you will be given the equivalent to the amount of money that you have in these chips. Now, you may think this is unfair because there are ultra-rich people out there that have resources in great abundance. This, I know, seems unfortunate, but we are not about to take resources away from people that may have actually earned it. Some have not, some have inherited it, but we are not about to take free will away from people. It may seem unfair that they own more than their fair share, but however, this is their choice and this is their doing. This does not make them evil people. This just makes them a little greedy. But I digress. In the instance of delegation of resources, like I said, we will just trade their money value for chip value. However, these chips are not permitted to be replicated. It would be no different than you taking your currency and trying to copy it or counterfeit it. It is just as illegal out there as it is down on the earth. This is a much simpler system since it will be backed up by all these resources. Now, I did not mention the other chips in the deck, so to speak. The brown chip, for instance, you would think would be something like fuel. And you would be correct. That would be more or less fuel for ships, like, say, the equivalent to your gasoline. Now, you would think the red chip would be for that, but you would be mistaken. Fuel consumption, it can be just as bad out there as down here. You see, some races are not as advanced as one would think. Some are barely out of the nest, as it were, and are at a similar technological level to your own kind. These are the species that will be allowed to trade with you first, resource-wise, since their technological level is very similar. They have just adapted differently and formed their technology in different ways and in different areas, and are not bound by the constraints of a heavy, burdensome economy. Therefore, their technology will seem more advanced to you, but in fact, you are more alike than you think. One of the very first species that your kind will encounter are a species that you would know as elves. Their true name is Albion. They, in your Norse mythology, went down in history as dark elves. They have some advanced technologies. This is true, as in propulsion drives for their ships, but the rest of their technology has been made of spare parts that they have gathered over a period of many centuries as they explored the galaxy. They have learned much from many species they have encountered. They are a group of nomads that originated from the Syrian star-being homeworld of Nestea. They will be one of the first species your kind will encounter after the Pleiadian Collective and some of the other Anunnaki species that look more human, like Tyler's people. They and ourselves, the Venusians, we will all make official first contact when we feel that your species has adapted far enough into this ever-changing period to make sure that there are no bouts of violence or no bouts of fear. We do not wish to stir a whole lot of violence out there, but in this instance, there must come a time where we all must meet face to face. We will cherish this moment, but we will also not incite violence amongst the crowd, nor will we allow your cabal to do such things. Some of these people are, as you say, incorrigible and will fight to the last breath on anything and on any subject. These people have been, as you say, in our path for quite some time. So therefore, we have had to take secretive measures just as they have taken secretive measures. This is not the game we wish to play, as you humans would say, but this is a necessary evil, as you humans would say. I do not cherish the usage of that vernacular, but it is true nonetheless. Now, you are probably wondering what the yellow chip would be for. I have left this to the very last. because I wish to insatiate your curiosity. Actually, that is not the reason. That was more of a joke. But in this instance, I will tell you, the last and final chip, the yellow chip, is for, as you say, metals such as gold, silver, platinum, and the like. There are pictures of these metals on the chips in the form of symbols. These symbols will denote in your language what these metals are on your periodic table of the elements. In space, they are in an alien language. But on Earth, it will say these particular symbols that are within the periodic table of the elements, such as AU for gold, for instance. But these symbols will have another usage. Now, say if you wish to trade gold, and that is what you have, but the symbols themselves have all sorts of resource names on the chip. What you would do is take chip and underline or circle the particular one that you wish to trade, say gold. Say if you are a person who cherishes that particular metal, and you have a lot in your inventory, but you wish to trade for, say, other types of chips or other types of resources, that is. You would take that one and circle or tap on that particular AU symbol. Therefore, these chips have a mechanical aspect to them, or a computerized aspect to them, where the underlining isn't necessarily with a pen or a stylus, but it will highlight that particular resource and lock it in with your thumbprint. Your thumbprint will certify that you possess this particular resource, and you swear by this in a form of honor code. There are slight penalties in the market system for lying about a certain resource. The penalties had to get harsher over time because people would lie about resources and try to scam other traders. This is not permissible since there is a neutrality accord in place on the moon and ever growing in this system. We hope to one day have this particular neutrality accord implemented on Earth so there is no more bloodshed amongst all the different country factions on your world. But I digress once again. This particular gold-colored chip or yellow chip, as I have said, can highlight these different resources. When you pass this chip to a trader and they put their thumbprint on the chip, this certifies a deal. Deal cannot be broken unless both parties also thumb another chip. Some have tried to back out of deals in the past, and this has made this particular transaction less fluid, but certain laws had to be implemented to prevent certain scams from taking place, very much like what your scams would take place on Earth. This is something I am happy that we have prevented, but there is also some resources that have been lost in the transition because people have decided to not act right. These resources will be regained once again once the Earth is opened up to the ever-growing galactic community. This is our wish that this take place, and therefore we wish you all the best in this transition. We know there are some that will not adapt well to the new ways of doing things. This is why it is being done slowly over a period of time to avoid most of these calamities. But in the instance with some people, as we have stated in shows past, that will not adapt to these new ways, we wish them all the best as well and send the ever-growing light energy to them. This is what I have come to say this evening, but I still must reiterate once again that your financial systems, even this weekend with the supposed ATMs and all of them being shut down, will simply not take place. It is nothing but a desperation move on the part of a desperate cabal. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Omar. Thank you. So you said that blue stood for water and trees, and green replicator rations, and brown for fuel, and yellow for gold. I didn't remember what you said red was the first one you said, Omar. Could you repeat the resource for red?
Yes, I believe. Actually, let me say he's detached from me, so I'm just going to ask him. I believe that was land resources or natural resources. Yeah, okay. He said some of the chips have kind of taken dual purposes over a period of time, so some might be confusing because I've noticed the colors I think originally stood for what they looked like, but then they changed over a period of time, kind of like our money used to be backed up by gold and silver, but then they changed over a period of time. So I believe that's what he's getting at here, is that each of these chips, there have been chips. He's showing me that there were only 3 to start with, and it was red, blue, and green, I believe, and the rest were added later, and they had to take on dual purposes after a while. That the more traders came into the system, so this there might be even more colors added to it after a while as well. Because when humankind enters this intergalactic stage, there's probably going to be even more colors added. And he's showing me some events that are possible futures, and he's showing me at least 4 more different colors that will be added to that spectrum. He's showing me like a purple one that will eventually be added, and I'm seeing what that will eventually represent. He says even though the future timelines are subject to change, the purple one will represent, he's showing me like skyscrapers, like the kind of like how the Sears Tower or World Trade Centers were, or Empire State Building, and I'm asking him what that means, and he's telling me that interesting. He's telling me old business properties or housing. The purple one will represent housing, like the housing market we have here, like real estate. And so we will come up with that particular chip once we enter the world stage. He's given me that glimpse into the financial future there. And I'm asking him what the other chips will be. He says future undetermined for those. Mm-hmm. But the purple chip will represent real estate and housing holdings for anyone.
I have a question, Candy.
Yes, Elizabeth, you had said, that we'd like to have more of a conversation sometimes with the Galactics, and I hope that Omar can stay around for more of a conversation tonight.
Good girl.
And yes, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, now, the chip off the old block. I'm joking, Omar. The chip system, it sounds like a transition into that. So, and it's not a crash, it's a transition financial. So there's a process. So there's processes in between to the chip system. Is part of the process something like the BitCoin, and I know there's other communities starting out there with their own money. And is there other choices right now, or is the whole world going to go to something, like through the governments first, or is it just going to be groups deciding to do their own thing? And is Bitcoin a good choice, or that's my question, Omar.
Okay, let me see. He wants to answer that directly. Okay. This form of currency that you call Bitcoin is actually the very infancy of this chip process. The person who invented, so to speak, this Bitcoin system is actually one of our people that implemented this system to help with the transition from your current banking system over to this much simpler chip system. The current banking system that you have will indeed have its collapse, but not in a violent way. There will be no need for individual banks because everyone will have access to their own accounts from their household, very much like you do online banking. There will be no need for the middleman, as you would say. The middleman is actually run by your cabal. So when the cabal eventually collapses, and indeed it will, banks will be completely obsolete because these chips will be in the hands of the people, and the people will decide what to do with their own resources. Thank you.
Well, that's good to know, Omar, because that's a confirmation. David Wilcock on one of his shows said that the Bitcoin was started by ETs, and while you were talking about it, I was like intuitioning, oh, that sounds like the Bitcoin program, the chip program. Thank you. And are there other choices besides like Bitcoin out there now, or will there more come along for the process to move into the chip thing? And that's a good thing, because that's a galactizing thing, because the chip money system will, help us interact with galactics. So, and how long before that? Probably 10, 15 years, or I'm fully into the chip thing. And is there other choices out there right now, or will there come along?
There are currently many choices available to you that we, the Venusians, and many other alien races have brought to the table, as you say. But the most simplest way is the chip system and your Bitcoin system. But you will see variations on these that will come out in the next few years. Be cautious of some of these other resources, because they will not be as they appear. The cabal will have tried to mimic these different systems. Now you are wondering, if the cabal is going down in a year and a half or so, why would they still be meddling in the affairs of the future finances? I will tell you, even though the cabal itself will have collapsed, therein there are the, as you say, disinfo agents out there that will take some time to round up, as you say. Therefore, they will be trying to create a little bit of chaos in the peacefulness for quite some time after, I am sorry to say. This will not be a large ruckus, as you say, but they will cause a few problems to where we will have to iron out the kinks in the financial system. They will attempt to duplicate the chip system and confuse everyone, as will the leaders of some of your other countries, such as the leaders of Germany currently and the leaders of your Middle Eastern countries and their business capital of Dubai. They will wish to have their own systems. All of these business-like capitals will wish to have their own stake, which is just fine. We do not deny them this. But this will also be some of these disinfo agents or inborns at work, because adding in all these different kinds of chips, such as the way you have different types of currency, will just confuse matters and eventually will be eliminated from the playing field in place of the chip system. So in the transition from your banking system to the chip system, just know there will be false incarnations, as it were, of the system out there. That there is only one tried and true one that will be the precursor to the chip system, and that is your Bitcoins. Thank you.
One more question on Bitcoins. So let's put our business hat on. Let's put our good business hat on. Pure, honest businessman that wants to make good fortune and spend it for the world and humanity, and our creating hat on. Is it a creative idea to get some Bitcoins now, or will it really matter? I mean, is it a good business decision to increase our currency in ourselves too, but to help humanity?
Yes, it is always good to have your own resources, but as I've said, it will not matter. Any money you have in your banking at the time of the switchover will be automatically converted to this chip system. So stockpiling these particular any particular thing like Bitcoins is not necessarily necessary. Do whatever you feel you must, but no state of emergency will be around to necessarily need the stockpiling of such things.
Well, thank you for the questions, and thank you, Omar. Yes, it seems that every trader I am meeting are brand new. I helped a woman today, just an hour after she first went on the first Bitcoin website, and it's a bit of a learning process, and I like that idea that people are learning to to use a currency other than dollar bills. I think
yes,
it's helping in our mind and set up new patterns of way of thinking and stuff. And so,
and Candy, the more people that buy and that come and invest it and just stumble on investing, then they're learning about the new system whether they know it or not. And the more people, the more of the word that there's a BitCoin system, there's an alternative than the Federal Reserve Bank around. That's good. So that's good that people are buying and learning it new and trying it, so the word will get out to a lot of people.
Right, and you don't have to buy a full coin. You just buy a partial coin. I've made several trades, just $60, and you get to thinking about things in a different way. Well, I wondered about, before Omar goes away, I'm glad he's talking about peacefulness and things, but I'm not sure that the people at the Turkish airport would feel it's been a peaceful transition. Would you like to comment on incidences? I mean, were there really 47 people that died at the airport this week?
Yeah, I'll see what he has to say. Okay, there we go. It is unfortunate that I must report these things, but there are and have been some deaths. Not all things that you see and you read are true, but at this particular incident that you are referring to, dear Candy, it did take place at least in a half-truth to what you read. The people that did die were not as numerous as what was reported. There are instances that you read online and you see on your television and the like that are exacerbated or exaggerated in some way to make people pay attention to them more. These would be false flags, as you know. But in this instance, there is a half-truth to this, meaning that only about half as many that were reported did indeed perish.
And that is sad for many people on many levels, but things are happening as we make this transition.
Hey, Candy.
And it's sad, just like all the flooding and the fires that is going on. And here we have a report of a second geyser going off at Yellowstone. Would Omar or any galactic want to comment on any of these more apparent natural things? Are they all? To what degree are they natural, or to what degree are the cabal causing these flooding?
Okay. Let me see what he says. Okay. It is my sad duty to report on this particular issue. There are certain things under the cabal control, such as your Old Faithful, for instance. This is why the timing is off. It is not just an Earth transition, but they have the capability of causing panic by creating some of these so-called natural disasters. Even though the weather control is mostly out of their hands, they have control underground of, say, volcanoes and, say, other resources such as your Old Faithful and geysers. This is something that is being slowly taken away from them, but we have not obtained all of the resources from them necessary in order to stop them completely. They also have bombs that are next to certain volcanoes, like your Kilimanjaro, for instance, that eventually in time they were planning on erupting it and causing the 3 days of darkness spoken about in your prophecies. They were trying to mimic all of these biblical prophecies so that they could recreate the second coming of your Jesus Christ. This has been averted for the most part, but there are still these explosives near some of these volcanic sites wherein we are attempting to get to them. Your praying of the law of one over such matters has helped greatly. There's much thanks towards this. We have freed up some of the energy around such volcanoes, such as the one underneath your Yellowstone National Park, the one that was supposedly supposed to destroy part of North America. this disaster will no longer take place, nor will the big one in California take place. Anything you hear about that from this point forward is a fallacy.
Wonderful, wonderful that you're making this progress, and we just want to extend the law of one that we said tonight to all of these issues here with the cabal trying to control from underground things that would scare and concern humans everywhere.
Hey, Candy, let's upgrade that. Let's give instead of injecting it, let's infuse it with an IV, highest good of all concerns, in that IV juice. Okay, upgrade. Highest good of it's highest good for and of all. That's my line.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hey, Candy.
Yes.
Hi, it's Marianne. Can I ask a question?
Go ahead. Yes.
And either Omar or someone else. And thank you, Omar, for what you're bringing through. Thank you so much. My question is, I have read that planet Earth is in the constellation of Orion. Is this correct? And if we are, what effects is Orion having on us? And the third part is, would these beings would we be meeting these beings from Orion?
This is a very interesting question. This relates to what Tyler has spoken of on the show with Earth being a super planet. Now, this is a three-part answer. The first part is what Tyler has already said about the various zones that are around your world, 12 to 15, it's still existing. The reason this is linked to this is this. The planet you know of as Nibiru, for instance, that originated in the Orion Belt area, and your world, though beings have said they are one and the same, this is actually true. However, the original planet of Nibiru is in what you would know of as a phantom zone, to coin your science fiction. This is a place where it was cordoned off during the ancient war period. However, pieces of the original Nibiru are scattered across your world and have been, as you would say, Frankensteined back together in your realm, making this planet also Nibiru. That is leads to the second part of the answer, meaning, in ancient times, the Great Pyramid projected outward the constellations that were above. However, to paraphrase, as above, so below, what I mean is the constellation Orion and the constellation Draconis were also represented. This means not only were we saying that you are within the constellation Orion, we are also saying you were looking at the constellation Orion. I know this is confusing, but not only were we saying your point of origin, but we were also saying that you were sitting within that system. Since time is all one, your past, present, and future are all coexisting at once. You are actually sitting not only on the edge of your galaxy, but you are sitting near the galactic core, where Orion's belt actually resides. This, I know, is extremely confusing, but once the veil lifts, as you say, and the illusion all drops, and all zones are not cordoned off anymore, you will see a very different star pattern above you. This leads me to the third part of the answer. In antiquity, or as the period you know of in antiquity, when the beings you know of as the harvesters came into your system, so to speak, they ensnared many that came into the system, and thusly they erected the zone barriers. This also made, as you say, a projection into this phantom zone where a variation of Nibiru still resides. In this projection, resided all the dark tendencies that my people and the people you know of as the Anunnaki or the Orion souls had. This reflected in all time frames, including your present day. This particular time frame that you now exist affects directly this phantom zone that the complete physical version of Nibiru would be present. But you may be asking, how is Earth and Nibiru truly the same world? I will tell you, but this may be more confusing than the layman. In the times when the harvesters erected the zone barriers, we had already begun to terraform a planet that was off in the distant reaches on the outer edges of the galaxy you know of as the Milky Way, known as Earth to you. But we augmented it to contain a hologram, as you know of, to turn it into a much larger super planet. However, when Nibiru was placed into this phantom zone, as you say, it then seeped through the opening through your sun to project itself into this here and now and back and forth again. This is a portal that exists within your sun and your other sun that you have in the system. Now, here comes more of the confusing part that is not going to be in the layman. In the Sirius star system, there are two suns that you know of as Sirius A and B. What I'm about to tell you will confuse you, so bear with me. The two suns that you have in your system are indeed the two suns that exist in the Sirius star system. How, you may ask? Because the three stars of Orion's belt and Sirius are not the same star system. This is a series of wormholes and holographic projections which link all of the cosmos together. This is only partially the layman, because in the latter, I will explain that the portal used to come into this part of the galaxy is also known as the Nibiru, or chain of worlds, through what you know of as the multiverse. Within the multiverse, there are multiple versions of one world. This does not necessarily always apply to Nibiru, or it did not, until a duplication process commenced by turning a water planet into a super planet, which then was Nibiru itself in turn, both mirroring each other, both dark and light. However, the mythology that you know of as the 12th world is slightly incorrect. There is no planet X that is going to be destroying your world. This is a fallacy created by the Cabal. But there is a planet still residing within this phantom zone that has been quarantined off from your own. Only the good tendencies were taken, and the bad ones were sent to this zone. Not necessarily the 9 realms from Norse mythology. That has the light version of your world within it. The shadow, however, is within this phantom zone. This is where the comic book writers of the Superman series got the term phantom zone from. This is also how the soul traps operate. They're within these phantom zones. The harvesters got the idea from this such technology when they ensnared your race and mine. This is an unfortunate truth that must be remedied before disclosure. However, when these zones do eventually go down, humanity will see a much larger world and a much larger history that they have never known before in this century. But they will also know other people that still exist on your world in these different zones. Then we will truly see how humanity can coexist with their brothers from different points in the galaxy. You see, the original Nibiru was a massive spaceport, or at least the planet you know of as Nibiru. Excuse me, I digress. The massive planet had a variety of different races, not just the Orions. There were the Syrian star beings that came and intermarried with the Anunnaki. There were the Albion race, or you know them as elves. There were many bug races that showed up there to trade and to mingle and commingle with people there. There were many other races that your species does not yet know of that actually exist right here in the here and now on your planet, just out of time sync, as you would say, with everyone else. Some of them are down in Agartha right now. Others are in these different zones. Some look exactly like yourselves, while others look very different. We will see when these zone barriers drop how tolerant people truly are of difference. But we are happy to report that we feel that when these zones drop, that people will cherish their brethren by that point. We don't know what the future will bring in this particular aspect, but we are, as you say, curious, but we are not curious enough to do it all at once. We know what that would bring. So, to answer your questions again, you are sitting in the Orion star system, but you are also just as equally sitting at multiple different points in your space-time continuum. This will be confusing to people in these different zones, with the exception of the backstage. In the backstage, in that zone that was created by your Nazi faction, that particular zone is actually co-time synced with the rest of the universe. So, in that instance, everything out there is actually much closer to you than you seem to think. This particular Nazi faction you know of as the Cabal, and a faction of the Agarthans, were one of the ones that constructed this backstage. This is the very first zone that will go down shortly after full disclosure, and after the harvesters have been reclaimed, or at least stopped in some fashion. Thank you.
Candy, this is on the line of the two questions I wanted to ask. Should I do that now or wait?
Well, did Marianne have a follow-up first?
Thank you, Candy.
That was great.
Thank you, Omar. It answered a lot of questions that I had and confirmed a lot. So I've been just getting a lot of glimpses, and the glimpses that I've had have been, 34 years. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Amazing information here. And I think a lot of us are going to want to replay this particular show and let it seep into our consciousness more and more. I have some questions. Elizabeth, you had a follow-up on that topic?
Yeah, since Omar mentioned soul traps, and there's an overlay, we'll just say the matrix overlays. Oops, there's some noise in the background. The matrix overlays us, which is like a soul trap and like programming. Okay, and Deidre came on the show on Monday, and from what I got from what Deidre said, she said two big things. She talked about our vibrations, and, they have to be pretty much a match. Especially, I think she was talking about twin flames and soulmates. So my question is, I've been thinking about this since Monday. My question is, when the twin flames come together, like face-to-face, human guy and a human girl, or whatever the twin flames are, when they come together on Earth, or even, will that love, that energy, help disperse the overlay matrix, the programming, the soul traps? And by the way, remember this, and maybe Omar can confirm this too, or not, or whatever, is they have an overlay dream grid too through our electronics and stuff in our walls. But you can pray for the highest good of all for that. But there is a true dream grid, and I always I tell my grandkids, I want to dream on the true dream grid with Mother Earth in the Aurora Borealis in the North Pole. And, that's a good mantra to say before you go to bed, dream. So I hope you remembered all that, Omar. Thank you. if you could address all that.
You are quite correct, dear Elizabeth, about the soulmates and their love shattering the aspects of the soul traps and their illusions, including this Arconian binary network. The love that is produced between these two, the soul flames, or the soulmates as you call them, will indeed shatter the illusion. This is part of how change is born. The other one would be discarding any negative illusions that people have in their lives, such as age, for instance, or the programming thereof, as what was discussed on a previous program. This particular bit of programming was a cruel joke implemented by the Cabal. They figured if they could prevent soulmates from coming together by making them drastically different ages, that they would not want to come together. They would be repelled in some way by their own written programming, and thusly not shattering the illusion. However, there have been some in your Earth histories that have defied this programming and made the illusion that much weaker. In this instance, we fully endorse this because, given enough time on your world, we will implement what you know of as age regression technology in order to undo what the Cabal has done. They possess this technology, but it is more of a rudimentary form than what we possess, and they have caused cell damage within some of the people they have used it on, when they have taken them from childhood to elderly age and back again. This is something that we cannot allow. But we can allow people, though it must be earned, we can allow people to possess such technology, given enough time has passed on your world. So, in this instance, I will also reiterate before answering the second question that the love that these soulmates put out, no matter how many arms, as it were, the soulmate, or as you say, soul groups put out, is what is needed to shatter this illusion. You would call this the rainbow body. Now, I will get to the dream grid, as you call it, dear Elizabeth. The dream grid is a mixture of both, as you say, the astral plane, the divine planes, or etheric, and aspects of the grand illusion and illusion matrix. The third in that is being shattered as we speak, but there are etheric and astral forms of these dreams. The astral plane is another physical plane. However, it is a neutral zone, as it were, or an amalgam of many different aspects of a lot of planes, including the place you call the plasma plane, intersects of that zone, as it were. The astral plane is, in some parts, uninhabitable, but there are people that live there. There are humans that currently live there, and other aliens that currently live there, and some of my people. However, when the zone barriers drop, people will be able to interact with people that live on the astral plane, and any objects, as it were, that were taken by some ghostly figures and deposited in the astral plane will be returned to them. I know this seems small, but this does happen, and you may get a kick out of what I'm about to say. Any object that has been lost in your home, such as losing clothing items like socks, shoes, and the like, and trinkets that exist in your home that suddenly disappear, sometimes been grabbed by unscrupulous or naughty children that exist with these human people that exist in the astral plane. They take it to the plane, but they cannot take it back again, so they just dump it somewhere on the astral plane. This has happened more times in your history than you think happens, but this also will be rectified in the coming of days. Now, this turns to ghosts. Ghosts do this as well, but they can't take the objects to the etheric. This leads me to the etheric, or the spirit realm, or the realm you know of as Elysium. Yes, in the dream world, some people do go to Elysium, and definitely in near-death experiences. This plane exists parallel to your own, and exists and coexists in the same space and time as your own and the astral plane. However, this particular plane has been, as you say, disseminated or separated in some aspects because there is a great transition going on in the etheric. The one you knew as Jesus the Christ said once in the symbolic form that his Father's kingdom was made up of many mansions. This analogy or this symbolism is not exactly false. However, the mansions that were spoken about in your Bible were, as this one would call them, soul structures or soul houses, or in a much grander scale, belief systems for when people go to the other side. These belief systems are becoming more neutralized, or in a less harsh term, more amalgamized together. So other belief systems from other races all over the galaxy will be disseminated and disintegrated into the one whole that everyone is, not only in the afterlife, but here. Just like you have belief systems on Earth that have, as you say, hybrided or mixed together to create other belief systems. There's a much grander scale of this particular concept going on the other side as we speak. So when you pass on to the other side in the time of your eventual passing, when you go to see your relatives, you will also see the spirit folk of different races all over your galaxy. So this is something new to expect when you go to the other side. Plus, you will not always see the tunnel with the light at the end. This was part fallacy, but also part truth. The fallacy part would be the bricks, as it were, in the tunnel where other creatures would reside. These creatures would either try to incarnate the soul on a different world, using a soul trap to serve their own purposes, or the soul trap would throw them back onto the Earth incarnation plane. But in the present day, when you pass on, you will see instantly the place that you are supposed to be. The tunnel itself originally was supposed to be the transition from one plane to the next. Now it is more direct. So just know, if you see this tunnel in the present day, it is not always what it appears. But if you see directly into Elysium, for instance, and see your friends and relatives, and even the passed on versions of some of my own people and the members of other societies throughout the universe, just know you have made it to the etheric plane. This, I hope, answers the questions that have been posed tonight. But I will say this: any belief system that you think you know, even regarding the afterlife and such, may not always be what it appears to be. Question what you know, but also, as this one would say, roll with the punches as they come along. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And just really quick, during meditation, and Cynthia's gone like this, and people who read the Bible this week, my favorite story, and I never knew why, in the Bible is the three men that get thrown in the oven. Abednego, I don't remember their names, but they throw them in the oven. The oven's so hot, when you open up the door, the men by the door burn up. But they put these three men in the oven, and someone like the Son of God appears in there, and then they walk out of the oven, the fire god, the glory, I think the rainbow body, and the triad, and they walk out unhurt. So am I on the right track? That was like I don't know what I got in meditation. It was kind of cool.
This story that you are referring to has been skewed many times over the centuries, but there is a grain of truth or kernel of truth to this story. The three men that you are referring to were indeed protected by many different beings, some of which were the Pleiadian beings that you met several shows back, called the Trisonians, or the men in white linen. They were there that day to make sure that these men did not suffer at the burns at the hands of the fire. They put shields around them to make sure that they were indeed safe. They wanted to stop what was going on at the time in the name of a godly figure, which is what we know of as the One. But these particular beings, this is when they first entered your earthly stage. When they saw what was going on in that time frame, they wished to help in any way that they could. So, when these hooded figures came to your world, they hid amongst the people, as they do in your current world, in your medical industry. In this particular instance, it was not just them that did this. It was my own people in the Pleiadian collective. and the Syrian star beings, also the ones you know of as the Agarthans, and several others. But I digress. The one being that came out of the burning fire with them on that day, the people regarded him as an angel, but he was anything but. Even though the word angel means messenger, this particular being was not what the people expected him to be. He looked human, but he had traits of other races. The Trisonians don't just look human. They do have other races that live amongst their people. But in this particular instance, this man that stepped out had a little bit of other races within him. What I'm about to say, though, will shock many of you. But this particular being you would know of in your mythologies as you say, the trickster god Loki from your Norse mythologies, as he was seen later. His truest name in Agartha at this point is known as Seinoth. Seinoth was a member of another faction that not only came from the Trisonian homeworld, but he also had Syrian blood running through his veins as well. The Syrian traits are what overtook his look, but the Trisonian urgency to help people in medical needs were what drew him to Earth to begin with. This was so very, very long ago that I doubt whether even he remembers some of his Trisonian heritage. They helped bring him here at one time, but in the end, he eventually succumbed to the illusion and became the trickster god you knew of as Loki in your Norse mythos. They eventually had to reclaim him as one of their own brethren, but not after years of conflict. But I digress once again. The incident that you know of now, which you are referring to with the fire, he came in to soothe these fires with the power of, as you would call, ice. Ice is what represented him later on in the Norse mythology when he found out he was related to the so-called frost giants in your Norse mythology. But I know this is getting confusing, but I will say this. These are things, some of which he is unaware of. He has a few more heritages in his bloodstream that he does not know. The only reason he is that of the frost giants is that he also has a bit of Ra in him as well. Though the blue pigmentation of his skin would have passed him off as a frost giant or a blue human, the rest comes from the ones you know of as the blue avians or the Ra group, and as the Trisonians as well. They also have blue people amongst them. However, in the days that this fire took place, he came out of the fire with them and showed himself to the crowd. They were so in fear they ran from his presence, except for a few that greeted their friends that had been put in the oven. These three men eventually went on to write about their tale, but it has been skewed and twisted amongst the period of years and myriad of histories that has been told and retold. The original incident happened almost 10,000 years ago. In the Bible, it would have shown it as happening only about 3,000 years ago. This is inaccurate. And also, I wish to report, there were other instances that were just like this, that happened not necessarily on a global scale, but happened in several different areas of your world. In your Oriental countries, for instance, in the lower portion of China, there was another incident that one person was being burned, and one of these beings in white linen had to pay a visit to this person. There is a small amount of mythology based around this incident in Oriental history, though it may not get the limelight, as you say, that it should. This is where a white hooded figure was seen at the scene of someone who miraculously lived through a fire. this was actually one of the full-blooded Trisonians that came in to an attempt to heal this particular individual. However, years later, this woman that they attempted to burn succumbed to other injuries that the crowd incurred. Unfortunately, this other being was not allowed to go near this individual at that time because she was meant to transition over to the afterlife at that time. So he helped her across in that way. This particular being went down in your history as one of the Chinese deities. I will not mention this man's name here until he comes through on his own to mention his whole name. Just know he is from the planet Trison, and he is of one of the men of white linen, as you say. This is all that I am able to answer at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
lots
thank
of
you,
gratitude for you.
Yes. Great topics to bring up. I don't know if Omar can or anyone can say anything more about my dreams that I had recently, and about it just seems like the sun is rising in the northeast, the far northeast, when it ought to be rising in the southeast in June of 2016. So this is what I've wondered sometimes, that the moon and the sun seem to be in odd places.
Okay, I'll see what he has to say. This is an interesting concept that you have seen, dear Candy. Now, this is a mixture, as you would say, of two different things. One, the timelines merging from the areas you know of as parallel universes. This has been discussed before, and it is occurring at a much more rapid rate. You would also call this effect the Mandela effect, where differences in your timeline and known histories are changing. Now, the other effect would be the soul prisons, that parts of them will appear at certain times as the illusion veil is dropping. Therefore, sometimes this can give the illusion that there are several moons in the sky, but this is also the multiverse at work as well. So this can get confusing. Once the soul prisons are gone, you will see the full effect of the Mandela effect at work. The reason that it is not more noticeable than it is right now is because of these soul prisons. Once they drop, you will see the breath of the multiverse, but for a moment, while the other Earths out there are merging into your own. This one thought the different zones at one time on your world were that of parallel universes. This is inaccurate. There are other versions of your super Earth out there in the multiverse, because the different aspects of the world you know of as Nibiru had to be divided up and projected outward in that fashion into the multiverse. So, when these timelines are merging everywhere in creation, just know that you are one step closer to attaining the full breadth of the multiverse and attaining freedom from these soul traps. Thank you.
Oh, Omar, give us a few examples of the bigger Mandela effect we'll start to see once the bad energy is dissipating, the mixed up energy is dissipating. A bigger Mandela effect, some examples.
Yes, quite, dear Elizabeth. In the instance of the greater Mandela effect, there are things that are already occurring, such as people you thought had died will miraculously be around again, and say businesses that you thought were gone will suddenly be there, and other ones that were causing more negative connotations will be gone. You will see this effect more readily when the soul traps have dissipated. The effect is less immediate and less noticeable because of the illusion, but there is also going to be one massive effect that people will not be able to ignore in the new Mandela effect, as you have stated. The biggest one will be that some of their own relatives, people's own relatives that have died in the past will mysteriously be around, and people's memories will account that person had not died at all. I know this is confusing, but this will be the biggest effect that people will see in the coming of years.
Well, that's in the Bible. That prophesies that in the Bible, people raising from the dead. And I was going to add one more thing to that, Candy. What was it? Darn. What was it? Franco Di Nicolo said, and this must be when the Mandela effect is really, really strong. There was a question asked that what's going to happen to all the cement in the big cities and skyscrapers? And I perceive this now that you say that, when it's really, really strong, the Mandela effect, that big cities and all the cement will just melt away. It'll just disappear. But that's further in when we're used to this stuff, I think.
It will not have that drastic of effect, at least not right away. But you are correct. There are some cities that will actually grow in size, seemingly overnight. This is not necessarily what has taken place. The better aspects of the multiverse are being, as you say, latched onto some of your major cities that have been controlled by the cabal, such as Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, and the like. They will seem to grow seemingly overnight, but what is happening is that there are aspects of the multiverse that are attaching to these cities. These are better aspects that we feel will benefit the overall super Earth when it is eventually revealed.
Wonderful, wonderful to think about the beauty and the comfort of the cities of the future. And all these things that you have shared. Well, I feel that we have done a long time, and we really appreciate the details that Chris has helped Omar to share with us, and the excellent questions.
We forgot one thing, Candy. We should ask Omar or any of the Galactics that are chewing at the bit, do they have any questions for us? But we got to help you guys. You got to have questions for us.
Okay, and we'll see what he has to say to that. Okay. This is an interesting proposal. The question I have for all of you is, what is truly important in your own lives? Is it the aspects of your monetary society? Is it the aspects of family? Is it the aspects of your world, such as nature? Or is it the aspects of anything that you hold and cherish most dearly? Or whatever your heart's desires, what is it that your heart truly wants in life? These are the questions that I am asking. These are not necessarily just rhetorical. You can answer them in your own private venues, but this is a question, these are the questions, I should say, that are to be asked within the self on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good. Very important questions, and a guide for us to consider in our own meditations as we wish to consider what is important to us and what we want to put our focus on. Well, Chris or Omar, is there any last remarks that you'd like to share before we wrap up this version of the Candy Shop Show?
Yes, I actually like what was said tonight. I like the aspects of the questions that were asked, and I like the questions that Omar has asked. What is truly the focus? What is the thing we want to be focusing on in anything? On the calls, in our own lives, etc., etc. And I believe that everything that has been said tonight has its importance for anybody. Not just you, not just me, not just you, Elizabeth, Candy, anybody. Everybody has their own focus on what they will take away from this on any of the calls that we do. It doesn't mean that each person will focus on the same thing. But this is, from what I understand, this is how the oneness is most honored, through choice. This is why free will was given to us to begin with. And this is what will make and build the future golden age, when we allow people to choose what their own path is. But this is also why focusing on getting rid of some things like what the Cabal is doing, the soul traps, etc. When we start peeling back these banana peels or onion layers, then this allows more people to choose the path ahead of them more readily. I believe that's more true now than it ever has been in our history because of these transitions that are taking place. But people always have a choice of what to do and where to go with their life. So I believe this is also Omar's shaking his head to this, and he's partially relaying this as well. He's just saying, just remember, okay, I'll let him complete this thought. Yes, dear ones, just remember that in your own lives, as this one has just stated, choice is most important. But remember, choose choices that are most balanced and not aiming towards the negative, such as judgment and such as callousness or malicious behavior. These things undermine the positive aspects of not only this Mandela effect that we just spoke of and the transitions that we just spoke of, but of your own energy matrices and that of everyone around you. When you choose negative inclinations, for instance, not that you don't have angry moments. This is not what I'm referring to. That is part of the balance. I'm saying the overblown, oppressive behavior that is allowed from, say, the Draconian Empire or beings of the like. These situations are to be seen as lessons and also to be seen as means of growing from. Granted, oppression is a very bad thing. We know this most readily. But take away this, everyone that is listening to the call. The way that you end such oppressive behavior is by keeping in the loving mindset. This is not to say that you are not allowed to, say, defend yourself if someone is attacking you, both on an energy level and a physical level. This is not the same thing. We are saying these beings that you know, or these people you know of as Nazis that still have their pie slice of the moon and control aspects of the Arconian binary network. The way you change these people who are completely incorrigible at times is this. You focus these positive thoughts on what you are doing in the moment. Therefore, their energies are close by and will begin to adapt to these new positive waves of energy coming from your own soul and spiritual tendencies. Therefore, they will make the choice to shut the switch off for the Arconian binary network. Some have wondered why we do not step in and shut this off. We even though we do arrest people from time to time, this is true. We wish to help reform a lot of these different people rather than imprisoning them. We wish to welcome them home as brothers. So, with that said, I will reiterate, focus positive thoughts on the Nazi pie section, as you say, of the moon. This is the origin of the Arconian binary network, and the switch is being guarded by two Nazi soldiers with keys, very much like you have directors in a nuclear power plant with two different keys, or submarine captain and first officer with that of a nuclear warhead. The very same concept. These two soldiers have been ordered to stand firm. Therefore, anybody going in with hostility would be met with hostility. So therefore, if these mindsets could be changed over a period of time and slowly, and our brethren, yourself, humankind, can focus on what you are best suited to, in spite of the Arconian binary network being in place, what this means these people will not have won. Though if you take the place by force, this will prove to us you are not ready for the new galactic golden age. Ponder this when you see visions of violence on your screen and feel them in your heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is a lot to absorb. Well, and Chris, do you know what your plans are for July? Will we hear from you, or will you be surprising us, or are we waiting until August for sure? Do you know?
I believe that we'll have to wait till August. I'm not quite sure what is going to go on this month. I know it's the 15th or 16th when we are moving, but I don't know what's going to happen between now and then. There could be anything that's happening because we're in the transition of packing boxes and the like. So I can say August for sure, but I can't say for sure anytime this month.
Okay. Well, we will look forward to your return in August.
We love you, Chris, and have a great move if we don't talk to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great adventure going down the road to Arizona.
Yeah, it should be fun.
and I'll be having next week on my Candy Shop show Mark Sorensen from the Toronto area, as he'll be sharing what the Galactics, the Pleiadians, instruct him. And so I appreciate the full house this evening. I hope this is a blessing to all of you, and that you'll be passing this show to the friends that can understand it on Facebook after the link gets up. And remember, if you want to listen to it on the phone, the show number 455. And Elizabeth, when they dial into the phone to listen to the replay, what is the phone number for the replay number?
641-715-3813. That's 641-715-3813, and then you dial the PIN 883267#, and the reference 455. And tomorrow, Misty's show is canceled, so there won't be any Diamond show tomorrow. And Chris, when you get back, we'll have to have I'd like to have Candy, if it's okay with you, and you be part of it too. I'd like to have Chris and Mark together because it's go back to Atlantis, and I mean we're going to discover maybe we're some more soul group gathering together.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, love everybody. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot to look forward to, folks. And let's just remember what Omar has told us to reflect and meditate on, and to start sending positive thoughts to Nazis and to the Nazi part of the moon, that those two soldiers will be persuaded to do the right thing. And let's forget about witches and problems that will manifest and hurt fellow humans. Let's bring more love into our world. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
The show is a wrap. Good night.
Thank you all.
Are you looking for healing or a change in your life to help you enjoy it more fully? You might benefit from a galactic energy reading and clearing from Chris Jacobs. Chris will work with you on a soul level to clear unseen negative influences, implants, programs, contracts, and energetic blocks. Chris Jacobs is a gifted energy healer. Contact him today at ChristopherStephenJacobs@gmail.com.